handicapped, the compassionate practitioners of the religion of peace. I'd like to know what the Quran has to say about how to deal with the handicapped. And the reason I ask that is because much of the Quranic literature is based strictly upon the Old Testament from which it was derived and from the New Testament from which it was derived. Never forget, Islam was the last of the three of the monotheistic religions. I mean, by Obama and the others, you'd think it was before Abraham, but it wasn't. Judaism was here a long time before Christianity, and both were here a long time before Muhammad appeared on the planet, which is not to deride Islam, but I'm just telling you that a lot of it derives from Judaism and Christianity. Here's the problem. While Jews have gone through a reformation, and Christians have certainly gone through a reformation in their interpretation and practice of the original teachings, we cannot say the same for many in the Muslim community. Certainly there are modern Muslims who are identical to you and I with regard to humanity and humanism. We know that. But unfortunately for us, there are many who aren't. And why we would bring in retrogrades like this, there's only one reason for it. Why would you bring in retrogrades who have a literal interpretation of a holy book which says stone homosexuals to death or kill adulterers and such, and make it even broader and kill the infidel? So if you read Leviticus 21, the original document, the old Jewish Bible, it's not very compassionate at all with regard to defects. That's what they call it. The Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, for the generations to come, none of your descendants who has a defect may come near to offer the food of his God. No man who has any defect may come near. No man who is blind or lame, disfigured or deformed. No man with a crippled foot or hand, or who is hunchbacked or dwarfed, who has any eye defect, who has festering or running sores or damaged testicles. No descendant of Aaron the priest who has any defect is to come near to present the offerings made to the Lord by fire. He has a defect. He must not come near to offer the food of his God. He may eat the most holy food of his God, as well as the holy food. Did you see that one? Yet because of his defect, he must not go near the curtain or approach the altar and so desecrate my sanctuary. I am the Lord who makes them holy. That's the original document from Leviticus. I don't know whether Orthodox Jews believe that or practice it. I kind of doubt it. But the fact is, the Old Testament is a very harsh document. They were like the Vikings at the time. That was the Jewish Vikings were the ones who lived in the Old Testament. Think about what I just said to you. That's never been said before. They were a warrior people. They weren't Woody Allen telling a self-deprecating joke. They were warrior people, the tribes, the ancient tribes of Israel. And if anyone was weak, they didn't have much time for them. They didn't kill them, certainly, but they didn't elevate them to God's head. So I'm just telling you what the Old Testament says. Many of you didn't even know that, which brings to mind some other thoughts, because I get into these trains of thoughts. I don't know where it's going to end. We can talk about the World War II celebration today. WVNN Radio. Randy, we have such little time. Please make your point as quickly as you can.
Okay, maybe your silent brother represents the white owl.
You mean the white owl that I saw wisely watching everything?
Yes.
Could be my brother watching from heaven?
Yes, just intertwined in your memory. He's still alive in your memory.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. If I were a Native American, I would go out into the forest at the end of this show, and I would do a dance in the woods, calling the white owl. But I'm just a boy from the Bronx who doesn't know any Indian chants. All I can do is dream.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Iskadal v'iskadal shemei rabo, be'olemo diveroch yereusei v'yamlich malchusei, b'chayei choin u'v'yoimei choin u'v'chayei dechol beis Yisrael, בעגולו ובזמן קורי ואמרו אמן.
The heights of the human mind and the human soul. Today's show is dedicated to all of the special needs children in the world and to all of those graves which hold our soldiers who liberated us from the Nazis. They are not forgotten today on the Savage Nation. And that's why I'm doing this show today. Yes, it has a special meaning to me, May 8th. It's a confluence of dates. It's the birth date of my deceased brother, Jerome, which I talked about in the first hour, which I'd rather not repeat. But it's also a day that is widely considered to be the day that is the day that Hitler was the Victory in Europe Day. It's the day that victory was declared. We have Winston Churchill on that, don't we? That's a beautiful one, Robert. You dug that one up. Let's listen to one of the great men of history who Obama hates. In fact, your socialist, communist, anti-American president removed the bust of Winston Churchill from the White House. This is to show you what kind of individual we have sitting in that chair, how he has polluted the White House. And a president named Truman, true man, made the decision that he'd rather kill them than see more American boys die, and he bombed them. Can you imagine how we have fallen from those days when real men who loved America ran the country to the kind of creatures that now inhabit the highest offices? Can you imagine how far we have fallen? But don't give up heart and don't give up hope. Because look at England. The liars, the louts, the vermin in the media kept telling you that it was neck to neck, tie to tie. Labour was maybe going to win and this one was going to lose. There was an overwhelming landslide in favor of the Tories, the Conservative Party. In fact, in Scotland, the Nationalist Party won. In fact, in Scotland, the youngest member of their parliament has been elected. He's 20 years old. He's a diehard nationalist. I have no doubt in my mind that here in the United States of America, there is a very strong nationalist streak that wants the borders closed, the language English reaffirmed, and the culture of the United States of America supported from the highest offices. I have no doubt in my mind that if we had one such Republican, which we do not have, that individual could sweep the Labor Party in America into the gutter from whence they came. The Labor Party in America, of course, being the Democrat, Socialist, Islamist party of Hillary Clinton and Al Gore. Liars and anti-Americans all. So here we are. We have no nationalist presence, and we're sitting here watching the world go by. That's one topic. That's two topics. VE Day, UK election, brother's birthday, Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. What a day that's going to be. It's a great. People say, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a Hallmark holiday. You know what? But it comes to mean something, doesn't it? It certainly comes to mean something. It's a way to celebrate your mother and to say thank you. Say thank you to your mother for giving birth to you. It's that simple. No matter how mean she may have been to you, she gave birth to you. So, I once went through this with a rabbi's wife because I was conflicted by the statement in the Big Ten Commandments, which says that honor thy mother and thy father. I don't honor thy mother and thy father. So I said, how can you honor a mother or a father who's been abusive to you? How does that work? So this woman researched this, and from a biblical perspective, what she said was, it doesn't mean honor them as though they're on a pedestal. It means honor the fact that they gave you life. And that way you can have it both ways. You can remember that they gave you life and still say they were bad to you. And then that's the end of it. You can have nothing to do with them. If that's the way it is, if they're always putting you down and they're always trying to get something from you, which occurs, unfortunately, all too often in most families, by the way. The life with father image of family has never been real. It's all a fiction. You're very lucky if you have it, but most people don't. Family is a very difficult act. It's a very hard thing to pull off and to do it right. And for those of you who don't know how to raise children, I'm going to give it a child. I'm going to give you an answer. I'm an older guy. Many of you are young guys who've just had children or are going to have children. You may not have an older man in your family. You may not know what to do. I'm going to make it simple for you since it's wrapped up in this whole show today. I remember when my first child was born, I didn't know how to raise a child. What did I know? I was a child myself at the time. I was a young guy. I was immature. I was what I was. I didn't know what to do. So I spoke to my uncle, who was a World War II veteran, a pretty nice guy, although I had my problems with him too. I seem to have problems with everybody. I don't know, just the way I am. And he just looked at me. He had no children of his own. His wife could not bear. But he loved me. He loved his nephews and nieces. And he said, all you got to remember is one thing. Just love your child. That's it. That's the whole message. That's the entire message of child rearing. Now, love your child doesn't mean bend over backwards like a liberal and let him smear mud on the wall. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean let him crawl all over you or ruin your life. Love requires discipline. You'll find out soon enough. Love requires knowing when to say no to your child. That's the hardest thing to learn. Love requires a lot of strength. So that's what is the whole picture. 855-407-2882. I didn't know where I was going to go with today's show. There's so many areas that I touched on. Banned in Britain, the election in the UK, which will have no effect on me whatsoever, nor will I think it'll change anything. Because the sick truth is that Obama's campaign advisor, Jim Messina, is the one who brought this so-called conservative leader to victory. I mean, what does that tell you? If Obama sends his campaign advisor to England to re-elect Cameron, and then he sends his brain, whatever his name is, Axelrod, to run the Labour campaign, it means Obama was manipulating the British election. Do you understand that just like he tried to manipulate the election in Israel, he's now manipulated the election in England? Only what you don't even understand is while we're told the Tories won, it's Obama who won. Just take that, think about it over the weekend. While you're laughing along with Cameron, thinking he's going to save the West. It's certainly better than the Labourite winning, that's for sure. 855-407-2882. Many, many stories, many topics. I know many of you want to talk about the emotional part of the show. I get it. WJR in Detroit. Jason, go ahead, please. Thanks for holding. You're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks, Michael, and thanks for this topic. I have a heavy heart. I'm trembling from hearing your brother's story. My son, he is 7. He was born May 14th. Him and his brother were identical, both born dead. Neglect was involved, but regardless, after 13 minutes, my son Hawk, he came back to life, and long story short, he's turning 7 this year. 10 brain surgeries, cerebral palsy, but he's got a spirit that lights up the room, smile on his face, and I do a lot in advocacy, and I work for a nonprofit on the side, and I just would like to encourage any parent listening, and it's not always going to happen, but I've heard so many stories where doctors give these terrible predictions, and I tell you, the pendulum swings in favor of that child and the parent, because so many of these stories, the doctors are dead wrong, and these kids overcome so many obstacles.
Well, because the doctor looks at the sick child from a mechanistic point of view, not from the spiritual or soul point of view. And if the parent speaks to the soul or the spirit, that will often heal the body to a certain extent. We're not talking about miracle healings. So, Jason, I really appreciate that. Are you married? I hope you are.
Yeah, I'm married for 17 years. We've got
okay, I got a special prize for you. I'm going to give you a free order of Shari's Berries for Mother's Day to show your wife how much you care with Shari's Berries. And they're one of my key advertisers, as well as many others. But it's Mother's Day, so you're getting a free bunch of those delicious chocolate-coated strawberries, which I happen to love. I'm really into chocolate now. Love it. What do you want to talk about now? World War II, VE Day, the war in the Pacific followed it, incidentally. We know that Europe was pacified on June 8th, but the war in the Pacific was still raging onward. And my father-in-law, may he rest in peace, wonderful man. He died of cancer about, I don't even remember, 10, 15 years ago. I don't want to mention his name, but the thing is, this is a farm boy from Indiana who went to Harvard, played on the Harvard football team, went to Harvard Law School from a farm, went into the United States Navy in World War II at the height of the war, was a gunnery officer, and frankly had Truman, after the war in Europe, where he was almost killed several times from enemy guns that almost blew him out of the water, Had Truman not dropped 2 bombs on Japan and forced them to surrender, the estimates were 1 million American men would have died taking the